on now.
Go.
All right, we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Tapcaf Transmissions. For those of you who don't ordinarily listen to the podcast, first of all, you're doing yourself a disservice, I think. Just personally, I think you're probably doing yourself a disservice. But how this works is every 2 weeks on this channel, we record an episode of Tapcaf Transmissions, and then on the alternate weeks, we do it on Corey's channel, which is linked down in the description. Basically, we discuss Star Wars books or sometimes TV shows, whatever else. Yeah, so I won't be reading comments in during the stream because again, we're recording for the audio podcast, and the book today is DARKSABER, book 2 of the Callista trilogy. Okay. Any questions? No? Good. All right. You ready, Corey?
Yeah, I'm just gonna grab the actual physical copy of this book so I can hug it and really express my love for this book. I really love this book. Great book. All right, I'm sitting down with my physical copy of this book.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Tapcaf Transmissions, which is, based on my understanding, the only Star Wars podcast that has ever existed. Today, we are discussing book 2 of the, I guess you could call it trilogy, the Callista trilogy of books, and that is DARKSABER by Mr. KJA himself, Kevin J. Anderson. And this is almost like book 4 of the Jedi Academy series, this time featuring Callista. So I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, Mr. Corey Loses, over on his cozy corner of the internet. How are you doing, Corey?
I'm doing good. I had to read DARKSABER, but you know what? It's been a good week.
Yeah, okay. So
how are you doing?
I kind of feel the same way. This book was a bit of a slog for me. Like, I knew it was going to be a slog, especially because it's really our first proper book back, I think. Or no, we also read High Republic.
That's true.
But for me, I listened to that one. So like this was my first proper book actually sitting down and reading it. It was a bit of it felt really long to me. I don't know what it was.
It's really not that long, but we have actually been doing a lot of Kevin J. Anderson for the last while, because before High Republic or Light of the Jedi, the last full book we did, I think, would have been Children of the Jedi, which wasn't Kevin J. Anderson. But
before that,
aside from all that, we were doing the Jedi Academy trilogy relatively recently, I think. Maybe I'm just mixing up the entire
we did it pretty
year.
recently.
But we've also been doing the Young Jedi Knight books, and I gotta say I have enjoyed those more than this.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, so you read yours digitally, right? Or did you read your paper copy of this one?
I read it on my Kindle this time.
So this is like one of those books where you've always got the like last 30% of the book is dedicated to I knew this one was going to be kind of long because like the proper stuff ended at 73%. So it's like, oh man, this is going to be quite a while. Wikipedia says it's 400 pages. Well, that's 400 Star Wars pages. All in all, though, quite a journey. One of those books that I think is actually much better if you just listen to the abridged version on audiobook, which I also did, because it's 4 hours long and it cuts out like a lot of the unnecessary crap. Like that fake Imperial General, he's not even mentioned, which... okay. Like
there's a lot that you could. So for those of you who have not read DARKSABER before, there's a few main plot points. I guess you could say the Hutt stuff with DARKSABER. So the Hutts are under Durga the Hutt, are building this kind of Death Star super laser,
not a lightsaber.
Self-contained. Yeah, and that's one plot. Then the other main plot is Admiral Dala and Gilad Pelion kind of uniting the Imperial warlords in the core. And there's a third plot that's Luke and Callista, who's the old Jedi from the Old Republic that gets introduced in Children of the Jedi. It sounds like my microphone is messing up, but it's just my throat that has decided to stop working.
Man's dying over here. And then there's arguably a fourth plot as well, of Dorsk 81 and Kip Durin going on their adventures. And I mean, they're
also there.
They're all fairly like it almost doesn't make sense for the Durga the Hutt stuff and the Dala stuff to be in the same book, just because like they're so different, and they never like you'll get that a lot in Star Wars books, but then they'll converge for one final battle or whatever else.
Yeah.
But in this book, they don't really do that.
Yeah, and not only do they not converge here, they don't really go anywhere, a lot of them at all. Like the Dallas, so this book to a certain extent is important for what it does elsewhere.
Yeah.
Like it introduces and then kills off a lot of the warlords, but that kind of sets a lot of what gets built around in other source books for the warlords. So for anyone who knows about kind of the falling apart of the Empire into the warlords and all those big battles of the post-Endor period, most of that is just small allusions started here, other than like specifically Thrawn and Zinj and Operation Shadowhand. Like most of that you don't actually see anywhere other than mentions that get fleshed out in source books as having happened based on the appearances of characters in this book. But in this book, they're kind of introduced. You have Teradok, Harsk, and Delvardis as kind of the main ones, and a few other ones that are just not even named, killed off the background. And that's kind of what the Empire is broken down into. But they're killed off here. They don't really do much. We get a really big fleet that's built up by Dala and Pelion, but it's also mostly killed off here as well. So all this stuff that gets built up later of Pelion rebuilding, reunifying the Empire, the stuff from this book is kind of already gone at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it is nice because it is like the formal end of the Warlord era, and after this point, you get more of like an Imperial remnant, which is kind of nice, I guess. But it's a weird way to do it. It's weird that Dala's so in on it, and yeah, it's a very strange book with a lot going on. They should have cut out half these plots for Champions of the Force.
Well, it's kind of the same problem I had there, where in Champions of the Force, you've finished within the first 6 chapters the entire plot of the Jedi Academy trilogy, and then you have 20 to 30 other chapters where there's just new stuff introduced that kind of doesn't matter for the stuff that was happening before. And in this book, there's the 3 or 4 plots that don't converge, and they all kind of sputter out on their own. Like I really do like that Kevin J. Anderson is, out of almost all the Star Wars authors, not afraid to bring in other people's work. Maybe it's just James Luceno that is more willing to kind of play in other people's areas. Because there are a lot of Star Wars authors, and chief among them is probably Timothy Zahn, who has their little corner. They don't want anyone playing with their toys, and they're not going to play with anyone else's toys. But Kevin J. Anderson really brings that stuff together. So that's how you get some of the references of Dark Empire stuff with Thrawn trilogy stuff. And that's really cool.
Yeah.
But some of the execution of it kind of just means that they're pulling in the names and it's not really accomplishing much.
Yeah, I mean, the best tie-ins we actually get that are meaningful are with other Kevin J. Anderson stuff, like the Jedi Knight stuff. Like, I like that Kip Duran's in the book. Like that Silgal gets mentioned. We even get an Exar Kun reference, which is nice. But yeah, it's just a very strange book. So let's talk a bit about what actually happened. I guess we'll take some time to discuss the 3 or 4 main plot lines. Luke, I will say, is one of the most ridiculous plot lines in a Bantam era book, because he basically goes and hits all the old famous locations. He starts off in Tatooine in a very needlessly extended scene where they're on like Tatooine for like 30 pages, and it ends up just being so Luke can visit Obi-Wan's hut, and there's nothing there. But he starts off on Tatooine because Callista, who is the computer ghost that's inhabiting the body of one of his former students, and no, that is, I'm not making that up. There's actually a line that I saved from the book because I thought it did a good job of encapsulating. Let me see if I can get to my notes. I thought it did a good job of encapsulating the kind of style of this book. I'll try to, let's see, my clippings. Where is it?
There's a lot of like consciousness being separated from the body, with like Callista, with Bevel Lemolis getting reincarnated, and the monks at the start that have apparently are the actual originators of all hut architecture. and were like an order of monks that built Jabba's palace and were still in it the entire time that he was there.
Yeah, that's funny because I just read the what's his name book about Bib Fortuna. I forget what it's called, but from the Tales of Jabba's Palace book. So it was kind of nice to get revisiting that. But I've got a little paragraph here that I think just kind of lays out how ridiculous this trilogy is.
Yeah.
Though Callista had been born decades before Luke, her spirit had been frozen within the computer of the automated dreadnought Eye of Palpatine. Luke had fallen in love with Callista's luminous form, until she came back to life in the body of one of his brilliant students who had sacrificed herself to destroy the dreadnought. Now Callista was physically whole again, flesh and blood, beautiful. They could be together, but, in a devastating irony, Callista had lost all her Jedi abilities in the transformation. She was alive again, but not the same, not completely there. They could no longer link with each other, mind and spirit. They had only those heady days to remember, trapped together aboard the Eye of Palpatine.
And Luke does have sex with her in computer form. It's heavily implied in the last book. So let's make sure that we get that out of the way. But this relationship is like infatuation at best and like hugely codependent at worst.
Totally.
It's the absolute worst relationship that Luke is in, I think.
Well, I was gonna say it reminds me of like when somebody gets their first like girlfriend or boyfriend in high school.
Yeah.
And it's just like they're just like gross about it. But like it's like that, but Luke's 30 at this point. And then it's like getting cut off from like their ethereal realm is like maybe your girlfriend can't go on MSN anymore. You can only see her in school now.
It's all Luke talked, like Luke's involved in some pretty intense shit, like stuff that's actually very important here, or should be very important, but he doesn't seem to care about literally anything but her. And I was writing some fan fiction to you about what that looked like.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it's super unhealthy. It's like everything that we said was wrong with his relationship with Gariel, but if it was at least somewhat reciprocated from when we did our first episode on Truce of Bakura. And I don't know, it's not good. And the fact that this was intended when Barbara Hambly made the character and before Darksaber was made, this was supposed to be the true great love of Luke Skywalker until they realized between Children of the Jedi and Darksaber that no, people actually like Mara better than this.
Yeah.
So this book, as part of the Callista trilogy, basically just existed to fridge Callista and just get her out of there so that Mara can come back.
Yeah, I like how Mara shows up on Yavin and she just like looks at Luke and just like God damn it, like shaking your head, like he's not ready yet. He needs more time.
Yeah.
But,
well, there's that scene with Callista and Mara, and they just talk about Luke, and Callista's like, "I stole your man.
I stole your bitch." Yeah, it's something.
And it's like the authors are clearly taking shots at each other with this, but you took those shots, but you're in the book where that character has to be gotten rid of because people like the other one better. So
yeah, no, exactly. It's something. So Callista's lost her force powers during the body switch. So Luke is visiting all the old haunts. He goes to Tatooine, no help. He goes to Dagobah, no help. He goes to Hoth, and this is, I'm not joking, a real thing that happens. Finishes off the Wampa that he had taken the arm off of earlier.
Well, it's leading an army of Wampas.
That's another thing. So they go to Hoth, and there's like this these people there, because of course there is. It's Hoth. Everything happens there, despite the fact that it's supposed to be a barren ice ball. They go to Hoth, and there are these game hunters there hunting Wampas, except the Wampas have basically decided to fight back. Luke and Callista see the entire party just ravaged. No one gives two shits about it. They just go on their way. Luke almost dies here too, because the Wampas go into the ship, they rip out the hyperdrive, they just totally mangle the ship, and it's just like, did that need to be a thing?
No.
So that's one of the major plot lines, and that eventually they end up back at the they end up back at Yavin, the Jedi Praxium, and that kind of ties in with other things. So that's the first major plot line. The second is Dala, who was thought dead by the Sun Crusher in Book 3 of the Jedi Academy series, is back. She's still as incompetent as ever, perhaps even more so. She's decided that she'll travel to the Deep Core, which is where all the Imperial warlords are, because the New Republic is gaining more and more of a foothold across the galaxy, so the warlords are in the Deep Core. She's kind of taken it upon herself to be this envoy and is traveling between these different warlord factions and is trying to get them to make peace, and eventually she kills them all at Toss Beacon and kind of just she's emperor now.
Yeah, so she asks them all to work together, gives them a deadline of like an hour where the doors are, or 3 hours where the doors are closed, and they don't come to an agreement. So she's like, all right, you're all going to die now. And she takes all their forces. Everyone else is pretty okay with it. She gets Gilad Pelion on board, who was part of Pterodoc's forces. Gets, was Cronus from Delvardis? I forget.
Yeah, I think so.
But I do think there's one clever thing Dala does here that isn't really explained in text, but makes sense, where she puts Pelion, instead of keeping him in charge of Pterodoc's forces, puts him on other stuff and puts Cronus in charge of the Crimson Command. So they're not still in the discrete entities of like the warlords' forces being kept together. They're mixing.
Yeah.
And that's always a good way to do things if you're going to be taking over a bunch of warlords' forces.
I like how Cronus is described as being ripped all the time.
Yeah.
It's like his biceps were bulging under. I'm like, yeah, tell me more.
Very few people get character traits that aren't like physical characteristics. Whereas like
Durga's got Cronus a thing on bulging. His face. Yeah.
Yeah, there's really skinny Hut.
It's just a worm. I thought that was a kind of a funny image.
Callista has really long legs and is blonde.
Looks like, thank God she took one of my hot students. I was worried she was going to get Silgal. I would have done it, but I wouldn't have been happy.
I would have had to have some conversations with Winter there.
Oh, man. Oh, we've gotten sidetracked already.
It's not sidetracked. We got to the main event of these podcasts.
Yeah. Can you imagine, though, if she had taken Silgal and Luke was just like, Luke knew how to cure her force, like, illness all the time, but he's like, I just don't want to do it. I just can't do it. It stinks. She stinks. Like,
well, Callista said there's kind of two things with Callista's plot where she says she doesn't want to be with Luke if it can't be on even footing because there would be a power imbalance there. And Luke's like, no, that doesn't matter. I can use force powers for both of us, and kind of misses the point the entire time.
Yeah.
Because Luke is just bad at all romantic relationships. And then the other thing is that she can use the force if she's using the dark side. And there's a point where Luke's like, just do that. No, don't do that.
Yeah, not one of Luke's more gamer moments. Or I guess that was a gamer moment of Luke. He's like, doesn't matter. Like, it's worth a try, isn't it? She's like, no, I'm a Jedi. I probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah, like there's some weird stuff there where she's like, oh, then our kids won't be Jedi, and screw those normies. But like, she's kind of right in that if she's not going to feel comfortable with Luke having all that power and being like out front as the Jedi master and reminder of what she used to be able to do, then yeah, it's totally fair that she wouldn't want to be around that. But Luke just doesn't seem to listen or care about anything that she says. And while she's around, he doesn't seem to listen to or care about anything anyone else says. Like, they get to Yavin, which is under attack by Admiral Dala, because she thinks that they can't take Coruscant. They're going to do some raids on other planets, but their main assault is going to be against Yavin, and if they can wipe out the Jedi, then that'll be their first real blow against the New Republic. It'll be a small, undefended world. They have a massive fleet. It should be fine. But in fighting them off, which we'll get to the whole battle later, one of Luke's students dies, and Luke doesn't seem concerned at all by any of what's going on beyond, like, where's Callista in all this? And it seems like he has a responsibility to the rest of these students, many of whom are probably quite young, and he's just doesn't care.
I mean, to be fair, the guy dies in a pretty epic way.
Borsk, yeah, or not Borsk, Dorsk.
Yeah.
Dorskfalia.
Poor Dorskfalia. Oh god, I don't want to imagine the Borskfalia clones, but yeah. It's just like show them like what else is it gonna do? I will say during the Yavin fight, the Jedi are like the most powerful we ever see them. Like the shit they're doing, like Streen out of nowhere is like summoning a hurricane and swatting TIE fighters in the air. They're like throwing rocks and trees and like full on guerrilla warfare.
Yeah, and then Cam, there's some juggernauts, and Cam like tricks the driver into shooting their own juggernaut. He kind of points the turret towards the juggernaut and mind tricks the stormtrooper running it to shoot at the enemy, and one shot takes out the juggernaut. So that might be a little bit
no, I think it's fine
of bad engineering, but
I do like that we get juggernauts so soon or so much earlier than the prequels.
Yeah. Well, this is the first place that takes him from like the source books,
right? Yeah,
yeah, because it was in some West End Games stuff, I think. But
I think they're ultimately based on AT-AT concept art, though.
Yeah.
Although obviously they're wheeled.
Everything is just ultimately based on Episode 4 concept art.
Speaking of, we do get some interesting ship things in this book. For one, we get the Shockwave, right? Is that the...
Yeah.
And they describe that as larger and more powerful than a standard Star Destroyer. So maybe that's something you could do for TR.
That we actually have that as an allegiance in TR.
Oh, okay. Do you? Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
but yeah, we have... how many Star Destroyers do they build? It's like 40 that they build up?
I don't know how many they actually built, but they get like 40 Star Destroyers and like 120 victories or something.
Yeah, I think they build up from 73 VSDs that Pterodoc has at the start to, is it like 214 or 114, something like that?
I think it's 114.
Yeah, so we get the ISDs, the VSDs, then we have Shockwave, which is Harth's flagship.
Destroyed.
Yeah, that dies.
Yeah.
But how did you feel about how the battles kind of went in this? Because we have this giant force. Cronus goes as Dala. So Pelion and Cronus kind of act as Dala's second in command or second and third in command. Cronus has the Victory Fleet. He's going and doing some raids across the galaxy while they prepare for their assault on Yavin.
Another thing Dala does in Jedi Academy Trilogy.
Yeah. And so there's actually a lot of battles that happen out of this, but over very short periods of time. And Pelion takes their main Star Destroyer force. He ends up with, I think, 17 that are there, going to Yavin and get yeeted out of the gravity well by the Jedi. Because a few Jedi, they just make Starkiller look like he's completely weak, I guess.
Yeah, they put them faster than the speed of light, just out of the fucking at the picture. They just like instant teleport them out of there.
Yeah. Destroying their rendering their hyperdrives non-functional, and they're far enough out that when Dala finally gets their Night Hammer, which is a black armor plated Super Star Destroyer, along with Cronus and his, I think he has like 17 to 14. There's around there.
We actually get numbers in this book, which is strange. We don't usually get numbers.
And I really like that we got the numbers and that they seem to be going to like pretty big fleets. On the Imperial side.
Yeah.
On the New Republic side, a Super Star Destroyer and every fucking Victory Star Destroyer in the galaxy is shooting at Galactic Voyager, a single MC-90, for what seems like the better part of an hour. Well, and they lose.
To be fair, at that point, I think they only have 14 victories there.
Yeah. Well, the 3 got destroyed because some DP-20s flew into them.
Is that what they were? I always think CR90 when I read.
I thought
they said
were
gunship, didn't they?
Gunship, yeah. So I think it's DP-20.
You're right. I don't know why I always think that. Although that art I think I've got in the thumbnail has Corvettes, but not that it matters. But
it's either way, they get destroyed by having some CR9 like small Corvettes just fly into them.
Yeah, I did like explode. Killing the 13X like that, but
yeah,
it's also just like the Galactic Voyager is just like lancing out and just absolutely fucking one up whenever it feels like. But I do like how that's kind of a inadvertent what's it called, the Akbar slash, because he's right in the middle of 2 forces. But what was I gonna Yeah, he survives a long time. I kind of imagine that the Super Star Destroyer is very far away, so it's like at the edge of its engagement range, kind of just a little bit like doing damage. But yeah, it's a strange
Well, remember earlier in the book, we get some war games between Akbar and Wedge, and Akbar just looks like a fucking idiot in this book at every point, because they're Han and Leia are going to Nal Hutta to spy on the Hutts, but under the guise of doing diplomatic overtures, because the Hutts had come to Coruscant with these furry little ferrets to steal information on the Death Star. They invite Han and Leia back, like, oh, we want to be friends. They really don't want to be friends. They just wanted the information. But to figure out what's going on, Han and Leia go to Nal Hutta. They bring the fleet to kind of do a show of force. And part of this task force, you have Akbar and I think it's 3 or 5 of the Corellian gunships, whatever that is, if that's corvettes or gunboats, whatever it ends up being. And then on the other side, you have Wedge, who has the Yavaris, Dodonna, and a couple of his own Corellian gunships.
No business winning against the Galactic Voyager.
Yeah.
NC-90.
Yeah, so like Akbar goes to fly between them, Wedge is like, oh, we got him now. And they just immediately take out Galactic Voyager.
Yeah.
But then later, all those VSDs and some pot shots at the very least from Nighthammer can't touch Galactic Voyager shields. So I don't know what's going on with the power here. But
the VSDs are described as being pretty weak in this book. Like in a lot of sources, VSDs are supposed to be slow. And the Imperial Star Destroyers are supposed to be fast. Especially like the old source books. I mean, the Star Destroyer itself is always portrayed as being pretty fast, but in this, the VSDs are kind of just smaller, more mobile, and it's like one Star Destroyer is doing a pretty good job of like, you know, it's like the Shockwave is being attacked by literally 100 of them, and it still manages to take a few out. So
yeah, like I think this is where part of the distinction between the VSD 1 and 2 comes from, where like the VSD 1 is the super slow one, and the VSD 2 doesn't have the missiles because those never get mentioned, and that's why I think that's what we assume Crimson Command is VSD 2 based on that and the speed for Thrawn's Revenge at least. But yeah, like I don't know that. I don't like Kevin J. Anderson's space battles because it's always the same. Like, there's no proportionality of forces there. It could have been a really cool battle if you give Akbar some more forces and then have some attrition on both sides. Yeah. Instead, it's just like nothing really ends up mattering. The main enemy, which is Nighthammer, gets defeated by some weird thing. In this case, Callista goes up to the Nighthammer in a TIE bomber that they've hijacked from the ground. She finds another squadron of TIE bombers within the hangar and blows up all their Muntillions within the hangar, which shuts off the engines. And then it just plunges into the planet, into Yavin.
I like that,
and that
to be
destroys
fair.
it.
Crashing
it
into
just seems like it doesn't take much to actually do it there.
No,
like
it doesn't.
The hangar's midship, and then the engines are way back there, and they're all just completely taken out by one squadron worth of Muntillions on the inside.
You're not gonna know what you mean when you say Muntillions.
I know, but it's still, that's part of the fun to me. The munitions. But like in almost everything we read from Kevin J. Anderson, there's not really any stakes, because this is the one case you think, oh, is this where we're gonna get one of our heroes dying with Callista? But it's like, oh no, she escaped in a small metal cylinder. Just like
we get our first major hero death in the EU in this book. When we lose what's his name, Crix Madine. Yeah, who I actually love. He's one of my favorite rebels.
Does he come up in many books until I don't think he ever came up.
I don't think he's in many. I always liked him in Return of the Jedi.
Because
also, I'll be right back. Mike, Gus is crying. Can you just keep summarizing?
So like Kraken usually ends up in the intelligence position in like X-Wing and everything, but here we get Crix Madine, who's the general from episode 6. So General Murder, that guy, and he ends up infiltrating DARKSABER with some other intelligence operatives, which is kind of the third subplot of this book, is what are the Hutts doing with this super weapon. And so he dies here, and I think this is the first instance we get of a movie character dying, but he is relatively minor in the broader EU. I don't know that he gets brought up much in other books before here, I wouldn't be surprised if he only got like 1 or 2 mentions. Whereas people like Yando Dana, he's pretty heavily featured in the X-Wing series. So we do end up losing Crix, but Callista is more directly relevant in the plot here. We get Dorsk dying because of his own actions, because throwing all the Star Destroyers takes all that energy. But like Callista probably should have died there, especially if they were trying to get rid of her for the book. But she will be back for Planet of Twilight, I believe, as the next one. So she's still alive. But this is something that happens in a lot of Kevin J. Anderson's books, where like Kip, the first time we see him in the Jedi Academy trilogy, he survives after the Sun Crusher by ejecting himself in a message tube. Callista and Dala both survive by using escape pods here. And there's the thing with like the message tube from Zek in Young Jedi Knights when they're attacking Coruscant, I think. So that's kind of the standard thing, is like if someone disappears in one of Kevin J. Anderson's books, just expect them to pop up in a message pod or an escape pod right after, like long enough after that you get this scene of like getting people's reactions to them dying, but then you don't actually lose them, because the Imperials are tallying their losses after the battle. A lot of the VSDs and a lot of the ISDs do manage to escape. Nighthammer doesn't, but Pellion's thinking about, like, does this mean Dala's dead? What are we going to do from here? Have we lost again? And luckily for them, Dala hasn't died, but she resigns her posting. So this is how Pellion ends up in charge of the Empire. And a lot of his forces will come from going and reuniting with the Moff Council, and then also incorporating the Pentastar alignment into their territory, which is the one major warlord who isn't mentioned in this. So Artis Kane has another warlord group off in the Outer Rim.
Didn't he die during Dark Empire?
Yeah, Kane died during Operation Shadowhand, but the Pentastar alignment stayed alive.
Right.
And that kind of becomes the core of the Empire's territory after this point, when Dala passes off power to Pelion. Not Pala.
Did you get the feeling that the Nighthammer might not be an executor class, or is that just me? Because originally Pelion doesn't know what it is.
Well, I think that's just because it was so well hidden.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Because it's kind of cloaked against
black,
the night.
Yeah.
Then the lights turn on. It's like, oh, look, a Super Star Destroyer. Because it was given the same incorrect length as...
the eight clicks.
Yeah, because like Iron Fist was given that length. WEG stuff gives executors that length. The executor itself, Lusanke, gets mentioned with it. It wasn't until later, until we got the much longer...
Which is why the Eclipse needs to get its proper rescale, because the Eclipse has the length of 10 miles or like 17 kilometers, whatever that ends up being, back when regular Star Destroyers were only 8 kilometers. So like you need
it's always a bulkier ship, so it is technically bigger no matter what.
Yeah, but I mean, if you I'm not actually saying they should have done this, but I always think the intention there was to make a ship that was like ridiculously strong.
Yeah,
that's neither here nor there.
It has a super laser. That's always strong. But speaking of super lasers, DARKSABER sucks.
So I mean, the idea for the DARKSABER is not bad, but it's like they bought the DARKSABER, or it's like buying the Death Star on Wish.com or something, where it's like absolutely nothing works. They're building it with like old like Raspberry Pis, basically. It's not good. So yeah, the idea for the DARKSABER is what I think is a pretty smart one. They're taking the idea of a Death Star, cutting out all the bullshit that you need for an actual space station, keeping the kind of super laser aperture and the super laser tube and everything like that, and the power generation, and then cutting the rest out. So instead of looking like a big circle or a sphere, you've got kind of like a cylinder, a much more mobile and much cheaper to make cylinder.
Yeah.
Where
you're not concerned about being a base, you just want to go shake some people down for some money, maybe blow up a planet here or there. being designed by the by the Death Star's original designer, Bevel Emelisk, but not the original body of the Death Star's original designer, because apparently Pelion has kind of a fetish where he will execute people but clone them. Who did I say?
Pelion.
Oh yeah. But it's all P people. I don't know. Palpatine executed him after the Death Star was destroyed, and
then like 6 other times.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Dipped him in some molten copper because, quote, that's what the smelter was doing that day.
I mean, the man's the man's not got time to find anything else. Yeah, he's like feeds him. He throws him on an airlock. He has him eaten by bugs and lots of stuff. And yeah, I mean, why not? I guess.
One of the deaths is that Palpatine has Bevel Emelisk eaten by bugs from Yavin after he learned that the planet was going to be destroyed. And he's like, you know what? There's actually some shit I really like there. Go grab me some of those. It's like, oh, you didn't blow up the planet, so now what do I need these for? They can eat you. But when did he have this chance? Like, were there Imperial commando teams sneaking into Yavin while the Death Star was on the way, or when the countdown was happening? Like, oh, we gotta get these bugs for the Emperor.
Maybe they were just in a zoo.
But he says he rescued them because they were going to blow the planet up.
Corey, listen, buddy, there's a lot of problems in this book. I'm not too worried about Palpatine's piranha beetles.
This is the one that keeps me up, okay?
You did. I was awoken from my slumber at 3:30 in the morning, just from one text from Corey. Just said, "But what about the bugs?"
That isn't even what I meant.
Please explain the bug. I'm like, Corey, you don't live in your roach-infested apartment anymore.
See, that is what I meant.
Yeah, but how are they doing? Someone in the chat says, did the TIE pilot who was stranded on Yavin 4 give him the bugs? I assume he's referring to Oral. What's his name? Oral? Oral. But he's still there. He's still there. Yeah, luckily, he didn't get taken out by a stray turbo laser bolt.
Yeah, that would have been unfortunate for him, because like Jaina and Jason, they aren't at the Young Jedi Academy yet. So
I did think it funny too, and they were describing the kids, and they're like, Anakin was 2 years old. All he did was sleep. I was like, that's not what 2-year-olds do. Like, he's like, he never talked, and like all he did was sleep. I was like, you should take him to a doctor. Like, that's not normal development. Like, maybe shipping him off across the galaxy with a nanny, watching her fuck some giant fish man, has affected his development a little bit.
Poor Anakin. How much of that do you think he saw? He saw a lot.
Oh, he saw everything.
That's why he made sloshing noises while he was dying on Mercure.
Yeah, he's seen everything. It's just awful.
Someone needs to die. It needs to be me. That's why he suggested the mission. He just wanted.
It's like, I've been looking for an out for a long time after seeing these things.
But speaking of executions, Durga the Hutt does some executions where he has everyone's chair wired to electrocute them.
Yeah.
And the first appearance of the Imperial non-general, I think he's like walking in, or it might be Bevel, where he's walking to the bridge after Durga has executed someone. Wow, it smells like overcooked sausages. This is delicious.
Oh God!
But it's a frying Deveronian, I think.
And then later he has an Austin Powers moment where he kills the wrong guy. He's like, "Oh, you're sitting in a different chair today."
Sorry, this one. Let that be a warning to you.
I mean, that was a very kind of Hutt thing to do, to be fair.
Yeah. But we do have, when you were gone, I was kind of giving the breakdown of Crix going into DARKSABER. He's put out there. He sends the signal back to the New Republic that this threat to the galaxy's there, and this is all in the Hoth asteroid belt. Well, Luke and Callista are on that planet, and Han and Leia must fly past this at some point. But the way this super weapon dies isn't from Wedge's fleet coming in and destroying it. Wedge's tiny ass fleet, keep in mind. It's because they're running away from Wedge's assault frigate.
He gets smashed.
Gets smashed by an asteroid.
Which I thought was nice.
And Bevel manages to escape, gets picked up by Wedge's ship. He's like, oh, yeah, how about that? Didn't think that would work anyways.
If I remember correctly, I think he's killed off screen. Like, I think he's executed, but I'm not sure. I don't remember reading that somewhere. Bevel Lemelisk. Let's see. He's not killed. Yeah.
We do get the mention of like, oh, he'll probably be executed, but it's not part of this book that he gets executed. He does say like, oh, just make sure you do it correctly this time.
Yeah, maybe I just read that on Wiki.
It might be like a Essential Guide to Characters thing or something where it says,
yeah,
he was killed. He do be dead.
Got him. That's all it says is got him at the end. So, do you think Bevel Lemelisk has some daughter out there who sacrificed herself for the Alliance, or?
So would you take a Krennic or a Lemelisk?
Well, I see him more as a Galen Erso type.
Yeah.
Or maybe Qui Jukes is Galen Erso. Because she's kind of unwitting.
Yeah, because Bevel is in on it the whole time. He doesn't really care. He's kind of more like the post-war Nazi scientist that end up going to every nation.
Yeah.
He's the Werner von Braun.
Also, I was just looking at Wikipedia for this, and when you look at that, number 3, Darksaber's trending. I'm not going to examine this any further, but I'm going to assume they're talking about the Darksaber from this book, just because of the immense reach that us, the only Star Wars podcast, have. That we, the only Star Wars podcast, have.
Yeah, when we tweeted this out, it was game over for every other article.
It's crazy that our Mandalorian stuff is still trending from when we covered those episodes as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're welcome, Disney, for putting that out there for you.
Yeah. Please return my calls and give me the episodes early, please.
There's one other subplot that I've been kind of tracking throughout the Young Jedi Knights books, and a little bit in the other stuff, but it hasn't really come up outside of Young Jedi Knights so far, where we know eventually that Jason Solo is going to become a Sith Lord. So I've been looking for sociopathic tendencies from him in these earlier parts of his life, because like everyone thinks, oh, he was such a sweet kid, loved animals, but I'm here to tell you that he gets like one line here or one scene here showing him, and
it's kind of disturbing.
It's pretty bad, because they're on they're at the Imperial Palace, and they're over like some banisters overlooking a crowd, and
Jason says, I guess I'll just kill them all.
Yeah, so they're looking down at everyone, and the twins are like overlooking the banisters, and Jaina says, look at the people, they're so tiny. Jason says, can I throw something down? Looking for an object to toss over the edge. No, you may not, Leia said. But Jaina's going to, the boy responded. No, she isn't. No, I'm not. So Jason is just looking to like drop some shit on some people.
Motherfucker's looking for an excuse. Yeah, no. And then Anakin too, there's like one scene where I think they're seeing maybe Han off into a shuttle, and Anakin's just like looking at the sky menacingly. He's like, you're lucky I got killed earlier. I would have been even worse. Nah, Anakin was always the sweet one. I don't think he had any signs, did he? Does Anakin have any sort of dark side arc? Because it's been a long time since I read NJO.
Really. He should have. Like, he was basically the sure of himself Jedi warrior at a time when everyone kind of thought the Jedi would just be old warrior types.
If they had killed, what's her name?
Tahiri?
Yeah, if they'd killed Tahiri in Star by Star, maybe that could have been an interesting setup for. I mean, I'm not looking forward. If we read Junior Jedi Knights, I'm not looking forward to reading those early NJO stuff, just because they like take all that. It's like, you know, all these characters that you loved reading about when you were kids. I'm literally going to have diarrhea all over them.
Yeah, like Ikrit and Anakin just die in probably some of the most brutal ways possible. And Tahiri might have like the worst life.
She gets like badly tortured and like Vong. She gets Vonged basically.
She gets Vonged, watches her boyfriend die, gets taken advantage of even before Jason becomes a Sith Lord by him.
Right.
Like,
you want to see the past, baby?
Jason's not a good person, even when he's supposed to be a good person. But yeah.
Yeah, not good. Not good. Poor Tahiri. Oh yeah, and then someone points out there's that scene where Tahiri tries to seduce Ben when Ben's like 14.
Yeah.
That's really weird. That'll be in
Troy
Legacy.
Denning does write some scenes though.
Troy Denning do be including some uncomfortable stuff in his books. Should have him on for that book. I forget which Legacy of the Force book it is. Be like, Troy, what were you thinking when you made 18-year-old Tahiri try to touch 15-year-old Ben's wiener? Was that a conscious thing you did, or was that... What was the point of this scene? Don't... Next question.
Here, Troy. The twins loved colored cubes of fizzing protein gelatin.
Oh God. Let's move on.
Well, this page is just full of so many things to talk about. Leia appreciated Mon Mothma's confidence in her when the former chief of state passed the torch of leadership.
Yeah, the whole no elections thing in the Democratic Republic.
I'm sure they're just happening off screen, right? Like it's not just.
I don't know. It kind of seemed like maybe it's like this thing where, like, you elect the Senate. And then, but they elect chief of state as the GA because we get Steve Martin elected. Or no, he's still in the New Republic at that point, are they?
Yeah, because Cal Omas does reorganize the Republic into the First Galactic Alliance immediately, with like entirely from his own power. Mm-hmm. So I do think the New Republic may still have some problems with executive overreach.
Do you think after like the Jedi had propped him up, like? And like Luke and them had went out of their way to make sure he wins, they're like kind of pulling at their collar, but like I don't know, this guy, he just kind of ended the government. Like,
well, he didn't end the government so much as he subsumed it within other governments and other governments within them. So the federal structure of the Galactic Alliance is kind of strange. It's almost like
I still think the degree to which the Empire is included is inconsistent, but.
Yeah, well, because a lot of them are just kind of member states where there's the overall government of the Galactic Alliance, which kind of replaces the New Republic, and they have some jurisdiction over member states, but there is a lot of...
Except the New Republic, which they've like fully subsumed.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like the difference between like England under the UK Parliament versus Scotland, where Scotland still has its own Scottish Parliament, but... Yeah, so it's not quite the Canadian style of federalism. It's more a unitary state, but with some.
We elected Dala as MLA.
Yeah, that wasn't good. That wasn't good.
No, Dala got elected as PM.
Chief of state
it's so dumb, man.
This is
Look, listen, Dala blew a 100 Star Destroyer advantage to 0 against a world with no ships, no turbo lasers. Like, you know what you could have done instead of sending TIE bombers down? Just shot it from space.
No, because the Jedi send the ship away. It did mean that Dorsk 81, who gathered all the power of the Jedi into himself to shove him out a little bit, he does fry himself.
Fucking wrecked Dorsk. Holy shit. Like, one of the Jedi just laughing in the background.
Kip's like, we must find Silgal. It's like, Kip... I have no eyes.
I just imagine like he's like turned into like a pile of dust and like Kip's just like getting his dustpan. He's like swimming in dust. Someone get Silgal.
Get me Silgal and some super glue. We can still save him.
Oh, grief does strange things to a man.
God, I can't wait till we get to Legacy of the Force to really just see how we get to a situation with Dala in charge.
Well, from what I remember, Luke kind of just picks out of a crowd. He's like, you. He's like, eeny, meeny, Dala, go ahead.
Oh, what Dala you want me to leave now? That's cool too. Bye, everyone.
He's like, it was either between Dala or Boba Fett, and to be honest, it was a 50-50 chance. He's like, okay, we're gonna either choose Dala, Boba Fett, or we're gonna revive Jason and give him a second shot.
Well, the really weird part about Fate of the Jedi is when they meet the Lost Tribe of the Sith, and the first question he has for Visterikai's dad is, "What to be chief of state?"
God, his dad's such a dick, or her dad's such a dick. I remember now. Oh, Lost Tribe of the Sith. That's some weirdness.
We were heading into some fucking weird territory after
Luke hunting
Fate of
down the
Jedi and
well, the last thing we get is Luke sending out the quest knights to find the Temple of Mortis, or the Mortis monolith, and Luke was going to go get, like, I don't remember if he's going to get the dagger of Mortis so he could kill, because they don't actually kill Abeloth for good in those books.
It's
like round one over.
Well, you have to beat her every 20,000 years or something, is basically what the story is.
Anytime there's going to be war, you have to beat her. Ah, man.
It's always a war.
We've got 2 Imperial Remnant wars scheduled for next week.
Everybody call Darth Crate.
Yeah, the Darth Crate stuff's a bit weird, too.
Well, the thing is, all that stuff would have had to fill a century between... between Fate of the Jedi and the Legacy comics. Yeah. So we knew where we were going with it eventually. It's just some of the specifics would have to be filled in. And that's kind of the same issue that we have with a lot of the like inter-trilogy periods, and now the stuff between like the stuff where you kind of know what's going to happen, but not the specifics.
Yeah. But
we do have a few email questions unless there's more you want to get to with our own notes here. Got some emails and some rankings to do, I believe.
On one occasion, they described Streen as like confused looking, which I just thought was really funny.
Well, I've never really considered Streen to be one of the powerhouses of the New Jedi Order, and Karana T sees him like, you may not like it, but this is what female performance looks like.
It's like Streen's just like drooling and just like whipping his finger around in a circle.
They're absolutely banging, right? Karana T and Streen, are we shipping that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I'm starting to see what you mean. I am part of the problem, aren't I?
I will say, there's also one thing that just stuck out to me as being a little ludicrous is that moth that Crix Maydeen uses as a tracker, because there's sometimes in Star Wars when you get technology that's like, yeah, if this were something that was like made sense in the lore, they'd use it all the time. And apparently Star Wars now has nanotechnology at a moth scale that can hide itself on ships and track it across the galaxy. It's like, why didn't you do that for anything else?
It's one of life's great mysteries.
Yeah,
it was probably just a regular one, and then he just likes moths.
He's laughing. He's like smiling to himself, like, putting the tracker on the ship.
Fly away. Flappy.
The moth did that.
Just calls Akbar. Moth fine ship.
Oh man, no, I think that's all I got to say. I mean, just you want to give overall thoughts and do. So how do you want to do this? You want to do questions first? Overall, should we stay on the book maybe?
Yeah, and then... we'll do the ranking and kind of overall thoughts, then we'll get to emails until we got to go to Bureau card. So
okay, what are your overall thoughts?
I didn't love it. There were parts of it that I enjoyed, but overall, I think this is going to be kind of closer to the bottom. There's some important stuff here for broader lore stuff, and that is usually what I enjoy. But at the same time, I'm just not a huge fan of how the story was told or the particulars of the story being told. And I feel like there's so much here that's kind of unnecessary. And much like my thoughts on the Jedi Academy trilogy, a lot's there that just kind of undermines itself. So for me, this is going to be probably between Dark Apprentice and Champions of the Force. I wanted to get the ranking set up for this week, but I didn't because I couldn't find the I'm probably just going to have to go back to the overall ranking video and reconstruct it from there. So it'll be in that area for me. How about you?
I like this more than Children of the Jedi, largely because it's not just stuck on one ship that I don't like the premise of in the first place. And like we do actually get to see the galaxy. Like I like scenes where you have Leia actually being chief of state and on Coruscant and shit like that. I enjoyed that. I think my least favorite plot line was the Luke Callista stuff. It was just like so boring. One thing we didn't talk about that I kind of liked was the flashback scenes we got with Bevel Lemelisk, usually with Tarkin, but I think there were a few other ones. I thought those were fun.
Yeah, the Akbar backstory is nice there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because we get Akbar as a slave. I think that had been established before, right?
Yeah, I think it was with the Jedi Academy trilogy,
Right.
at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah, I think you're right. So this is like better than like I like this more than I like say Crystal Star or than I like Children of the Jedi, but it's certainly not a slam dunk by any stretch of the imagination.
Mm-hmm. All right. Do you have like an idea of what tier that's going to put it in for you?
It'll be bottom C for me, I think.
Bottom C. Wow, that's higher than I thought it would be.
Maybe a D. I mean, I don't think I've got any below D right now.
I don't think you. Yeah, I don't know if you have a D at all.
Shut up. I think
D tier.
Yeah, I think maybe I put Children of the Jedi in D, but I'm not positive. Mm-hmm. Let's just go read MedStar again.
MedStar was quite good. But yeah, so I guess before we get to emails, do you want to decide what we're doing next week?
I haven't really thought about it yet. I mean, I'm not sure what I want to do. I'd kind of like to take a week off from reading, if I'm being honest. So if there's something we could think about to talk for that. I don't know.
I mean, season 1 of Rebels.
Yeah, I kind of want to watch it all again though, because I just watched all 4 seasons, and I kind of want to watch it again. So like, I'd like to plan that a bit in advance, so I can spread over at least a couple weeks.
So we should probably plan around the episode on the 4th of March, that week being Victory's Price, right?
Oh yeah, right.
So we'll kind of plan backwards from there. Maybe we'll just do a quick planning session here.
I'll say I also got Victory's Price, and I did email to see if I could get it for you as well. So maybe we could do it. When does it actually release?
I think it releases on the 3rd, and we'd normally be recording on the 4th. I don't know if I'm going to be able to read it.
Yeah, so if you can get it in advance, we can do it on the 4th. I will say,
honestly, if it releases on the 3rd, I might just sit there and read it.
The only problem is if we do it that way, we don't give time for ordinary people to read along with us.
Ordinary people.
Well, I mean, who wants to,
the listeners?
Yeah, the listeners. I mean, ordinary people who can't start reading Star Wars books off as part of their job.
Yeah.
I will say I've read a little bit of it, and oh man, it's really, really good. I did my Control F at the beginning of the book, and I've told this many times. Whenever I get a new advanced reader's copy of a book, I go to the program and I Control F certain words. Found a lot in this one that got me excited.
Wow. Are you done already?
No, I'm gonna read it this. That's kind of why I want to do something I don't have to read, because I want to read it this week.
So we have basically 3 episodes between now and then. The Young Jedi Knight books are still reading, so there's that.
Yeah, we could do that, or
like we could just do 3 weeks of Young Jedi Knights, because we do need to finish them, or we could do a comic maybe.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Do you have any thought, anything that's jumping out, or maybe if Chad has anything that's jumping out to do as like a topical one, or
I don't know, man. I'm looking to chat, see if there's any. We could also just take some ideas. Eventually,
we could do another question episode as well, because there were some questions we didn't get to, and people seemed interested in that.
Yep, so that's true. I'm trying to think if there's any, and we also did do the last questions one on my channel, I think, so it would be on yours, so it'd be a good switch.
Well, that also means we might not get as many questions.
We could also do Into the Dark at some point. I'm not sure how short it is, because it is a young reader's book, but I don't think it's that short. I personally would also like to do Star what's the name of that book? I almost said Star by Star. It's not that. I almost said Across the Stars.
Nice
it's
short
not
one.
That.
The one that came out with Light of the Jedi?
No, yeah, well, that's Into the Dark, isn't it? Isn't that what it's called? Yeah. How long is that? I'm just looking right now. It's probably still pretty long. Yeah, it's 352 pages. So
how many issues of Crimson Empire are there? Or how many
for Crimson Empire 1? I think it's only like 4 issues. It's not very long.
Well, I even mean overall, because we might be able to just do there's 20
issues.
Hmm.
And they're like Crimson Empire 1 is very different than 2 and 3.
Well, do you want to just say we'll do Crimson Empire 1 next week?
Sure. Yeah.
That's 6 issues of a comic. I think that's not too much reading.
That's doing 1 is definitely. I just been doing all 20 at once is a lot.
No, I was gonna say, like, since we have 3 weeks, if we did Crimson Empire 1, 2, and 3 in a row, then we get them all done at once.
Yeah. Yeah. I just read them. I think Crimson Empire 2 has the Lusankian as well, which is cool.
Yeah. So do you want to we'll commit to that right now? We'll do Crimson Empire 1, 2, 3, and then Victory's Price after that. That'll be our next month.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Lock her in.
Lock her in, buddy. Maybe it's not Crimson Empire 2 that has the Lusanki in it.
Okay, well now, fuck it. We're not doing it.
Is it though? Which is the one that has the... No, it's not Crimson Empire that's got that. I was thinking of something else. Which is the comic that's got like the Imperial Warlords using all of the all the old Republic technology? Remember?
That's the restored people.
Yeah, the Restored Empire.
What comic is that? Is that
oh, it is Crimson Empire 3.
Is
okay.
it?
Yep. Because that has Willie Sankey in it in comic book form, which is kind of cool. And I think I think Han Solo has in command of it for some reason.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna get to our email questions here. There were 1 or 2 more that got in afterwards for Bob, actually.
Okay.
So we'll see. People did seem to enjoy that one, so maybe he'll be up to coming back on in the future if he doesn't get fired for talking to us.
It was a pretty tame episode.
Yeah. But if anyone goes and listens to the previous episodes, I did warn him when he said he was doing it that he told his department that he was going to come on.
Why did he do that?
Yeah, because it was outreach, and that was what he was planning around, and told people with the podcast. But that was a mistake.
Yes,
but our first email that we're going to talk about here is from Joel, who says, how do you feel about the overall direction, regular emailer, Joel, says, how do you feel about the overall direction with regards to the Empire in the post-Endor EU and Legends? Personally, I really don't like it post-Bantam era and post-Pelion-Gaverson Treaty. Not only do I dislike the idea of the New Republic not fighting tooth and nail to see the complete destruction of the Empire from an in-universe perspective, I always got the vibe that some authors wanted to try and essentially give the Empire under Pelion and later Fel a redemption arc and make them outright good guys in NJO and post-NJO. Not until Legacy do the Empire become baddies again, and even then it's because they got taken over by Sith and not because authoritarian governments are just outright bad things. Controversial opinion, but I much prefer the Empire direction post-Endor and canon with the First Order because I feel like it stuck to Star Wars' very clear anti-authoritarian message where evils like the Empire and its fascism should be brought and given no corner. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a good point. Like, Jagfell is probably a character that I like, but I've kind of got some problems with for that very reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, he's like the kind fascist. Like,
yeah,
the Empire...
Pelion really gets whitewashed a lot, and
yeah,
he's really not good in pretty much any point. It's just he's not as bad as the Vong. Like
I'd say he's good. Oh shit! I just knocked my track IR off my headset. I forgot I had that on. I'd say he's okay by Pelion-Gaverson Treaty, and like he's a pretty good character in Legacy of the Force. Like he's kind of taken his statesman role, and but
he's always still very authoritarian, and like he does embody a lot of the traits that are wrong with the Empire in a lot of his earlier appearances as well.
He's
the humanocentrism. And I feel like a lot of people kind of give him a pass on all of that because by the time of Legacy of the Force, he's at least like standing up to
Jason,
the super authoritarian Force users, and because he does always kind of have like a thing about Palpatine where he thinks, well, Palpatine's not very epic, but he still ends up fighting for them long after he had a choice to not do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because Palpatine kind of has like a bit of his come to Jesus moment.
Pelion?
Yeah. Sorry, what did I say? You
said Palpatine.
Oh yeah.
Now we're even for earlier.
Yeah. Pelion sort of has this come to Jesus moment where he realizes like the empire that he thought he served never really existed.
Yeah.
But it's still like, it's still.
But at the same time, the empire he thought he was serving wasn't that great either.
Yeah, I mean,
like for the species stuff, and then there's also when they're initially negotiating with him, like he's on board with fighting the Yuzon Vong, which like points for that. But they go to there's the gardening scenes with him, where like it kind of still outlines his worldview as being like the authoritarian imposed order situation.
Yeah, he do be liking flowers. You're right. Like Star Wars kind of presents. It is true that some of the later Star Wars stuff does present like authoritarianism as like he's not evil. He just really likes law and order, whatever that means. It's like we all know what it means. It's like he wants to be a dictator, but he's gonna be a good dictator.
It's a problem
all criminals flayed and murdered.
It's a problem in Star Wars and how it's presented in general, because like it's very monarchist in a way, where like you do have your chosen one, and you have everything's based around this family. So just by necessity, if you're keeping it based around them, you want them to have these important roles, and they're also where all the villains are coming from. It's like all the problems in the galaxy you can kind of trace back to those one or two families that are just, it's a galactic oligarchy of people with way more power than they really should have. But because it is supposed to be organized that way, just from a narrative standpoint, you get a lot of the problems that are inherent with having a society organized that way. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's a interesting question. And I mean, he made some good points. So thanks for that.
You want to get the next one? Or
can you, and I'll get the one after that.
All right. Gonna have to go for some shorter ones right now, because we are gonna be making Charlie wait.
Which I've got no problem with. We did something special for the beginning of Bureau Card.
Yeah, that's true.
So Jacob, not a question, but just a comment saying there's a really funny Star Wars wax museum in Barcelona, and I think that was kind of been a thing recently online. Which is funny. A lot of these are science questions. I'm just looking through it now.
It's like, we gotta get Bob on for these.
Tank Ace has a question about clones being phased out, and so in canon they phase clones out pretty immediately after the formation of the Empire. In Legends it's different, and he points out, and this is not something that I remember, but I'm sure is true, that in the canon book Battlefront 1 Twilight Company, we see an old clone serving as an Imperial officer at the Battle of Sullust. It's the only clones thing has not been the approach forever. I remember talking to one of the devs on Jedi Fallen Order. I got to speak to one of them at E3, and I asked something about clones, and he's like, all the clones are gone by now. And I was like, oh, really? I didn't know. So I know that it's not been completely consistent, but that's just the approach taken now, where all the clones are gone.
Yeah, and we kind of actually see in Rebels like how Callus responds to Rex and Wolf, where they're out there in the galaxy, and there probably are going to be a couple that ended up staying in service. So
yeah. And I mean, we also see how old they are, because you got to remember these clones age at double the rate. And but the thing about Legends too, they had different clone batches, different clone types, and they were kind of continuing some methods of cloning after the Galactic, or after the Clone Wars. So that's one thing that's different. Yeah, good question.
All right. So do we leave it there for today?
Yeah.
And so we should do another question period one soon, maybe after the Alphabet Squadron.
Yeah, that'd be a good
after Victory's Price.
Yeah. So we're kind of at the point right now where our inbox is to be honest, it's just a mess because we're getting a lot of emails. We had a lot of science ones that we're probably not qualified to answer, or at least not in any meaningful way. So if you've sent us a message and we haven't answered it yet, just assume that it's not going to be answered because we've lost it. Feel free to resubmit it, but also try to... Next week, we're reading Crimson Empire 1. Not just issue 1, but all... What, you said 6 issues, is it?
Yeah, there's 6 issues in Crimson Empire 1. Then there's a further 14 for 2 and 3. So not especially long. We'll probably have time for more comments, questions.
Yeah, so read along with us. Crimson Empire 1 is probably one of the most well-known Star Wars comics of all time. It's got a very epic duel in it. It's like half of issue 6 is the Kirk-Hanos duel, which is fun. So yeah.
All right.
That's all I got.
And that's all I've got. I'm assuming you're going to end the stream while I'm talking.
No. All right, guys, that's it for today's podcast episode. Thank you so much for watching. As always, guys, do me a favor. I'm not going to cut Corey off before I do the very important thing of telling you guys to go to your favorite podcast platform, iTunes, Podbean, Joe on the corner who sells podcasts. Leave a 5-star review.
Potty Joe.
Potty Joe. Go up to Potty Joe. Put both your hands on the table. Get real close to him. I want you to smell the liquor on his breath and say, Tapcaf Transmissions, only Star Wars podcast, 5 stars. Or go to iTunes, click 5 stars, leave a nice review. Oh, that's something I'm going to check before we end this, if we got any new podcast reviews.
All right, after we do this, we are about to start playing some Mario Kart over on youtube.com/ECKSTOO. That's where we drink, talk, and play Mario Kart 64 with our friend Charlie, who you may know from previous episodes of the podcast. So you can tune into that if you are interested. It's always an interesting time, I guess, especially with today's special review.
Yes,
it's going to be great.
I'm going to say we've got a celebrity guest today. Celebrity. Right. We do have a few podcast reviews. Do you want me to just read these to end it?
Yes. Okay. Absolutely.
We've got thumbs up, 5 out of 5 from 5 G's, 3 H's, 2 more G's, an H, a Y, a G, a Y, a B, and a V. That's his name. He says, good podcast. I would recommend highly. Wet Bub would be proud. Wet Bub, of course, being the Gungan from the High Republic. Nayoa the Prince is the KFC of Star Wars. The podcast is great. It has all the great flavor of a bucket of KFC chicken, with how in-depth they go with the reviews and takes on old and new canon. I didn't read this through before reading it. Only drawback is the greasy bottom of the bucket known as Charlie. But his infrequent presence, much like a heart attack, keeps things interesting.
Oh my god.
Oh man. Okay, very good. We got Lil X Videos who says 2 knuckleheads talk Star Wars for some time, being the only game in town. I give it 5 stars. We've got Chewy Holic says 2 there are, a master and apprentice, no more no less. Yoda, there is another Star Wars podcast. I don't know about that, but those are some really, really amazing podcast reviews, guys. It means a lot to me. And listen, we spend a lot of time on this podcast reading. You know, I'm a slow reader. I'm not that bright. It takes me a long time to get through these books. So giving good reviews and recommending the podcast to others really helps us grow. Corey and I have talked about bringing the podcast to the next level, and as soon as we can. I know that's one of my goals for this year. One of the reasons I got a new mic. So yeah,
like an intro song, some actual art related to the podcast rather than the X2 background and my passable layout. Like we might even use Zoom or something, and we can look like a real Star Wars Explained live stream.
I don't like that idea.
And maybe we'll get a sponsor now that product has dropped us. But yeah. Any suggestions you guys have for how we could be just better at our jobs? You can submit those along with other questions for Crimson Empire 1 at tapcaftransmissions@gmail.com.
If you can work, if you're going to leave a review and you can work the word sleazy into it without being disparaging towards Corey or I, then
or towards anyone who works for anything Star Wars related,
yes, then I'll appreciate it even more. But with that, guys, we are going to end the podcast. Corey, take us out.
Bye, everyone.
Fuck.
Okay.